As we enter the launch week of Black Ops 4, that means World War II is unfortunately coming to an end. With that being said, my name is Crazy Pie. On this channel, we do everything relating from Call of Duty tips, tricks, and more. In this video, we're going to be going over World War II, what it did right, what it did wrong, and just overall, one big review of Call of Duty World War II. If you guys enjoy this video and do enjoy Call of Duty content, please feel free to subscribe to this channel as well as leave a like down below. And without further ado, let's get started into the video. So guys, World War II came out in November of 2017. It is the first game within like 10 years to actually go to the World War II setting, which meant that this was actually one of the most hyped Call of Duties within the past 10 years as well. Obviously, you have stuff like Modern Warfare 1, or Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, but this game was one of the most hyped Call of Duties because within the past 3 years, we've just had jetpack games, and now we're going back to boots on the ground, which made one massive hype train for World War II because we're finally going back to boots on the ground Call of Duties, and that meant that Call of Duty is going back to its home. It's going back to its roots, which was in World War II. If you guys don't recall, the last World War II game was actually in Call of Duty World at War. So as you can probably imagine, really long time. And I don't know if you guys remember, but even I was hyping this up right when this game came out. Like the first day and like the first weekend of this video game, it actually outsold Thor Ragnarok in money, in like actual profit. So I was really hyped. I thought this game was going to do extremely well this year. I'm not saying it didn't do really well. COD's definitely not dead, but there's just a couple things that made this game not perform as well as it could have, and let's get into that right now. So one of the biggest things that made this game not perform as well as it could have, and honestly, it happened with Infinite Warfare as well. If you guys can't recall, or can't tell by now, all Treyarch games seem to be like really polished and really finished. And it seems like for like the past 2 years with World War II as well as Infinite Warfare, these two CODs haven't really been finished upon release, which I find to be really, really weird. Because if you think about it like this, now that there's a 3-year development cycle for these Call of Duty games, why do they come out unfinished? Like Black Ops 3 was one of the most finished Call of Duties. Black Ops 2 was one of those finished Call of Duties. Why is it that Treyarch games always come out finished, but every other Call of Duty doesn't? Like, it's just weird, which makes me really hyped for Black Ops 4 because it looks like one of the most polished and finished Call of Duties, especially now because we don't have a campaign. So, I don't know. This game wasn't really finished, in my opinion. It didn't have everything that it needed to be a proper Call of Duty. And in my opinion, I feel like this game should have just shipped with DLC 1. I think DLC 1 should have just been in the standard map rotation because, honestly, releasing a Call of Duty game with only 9 maps at launch was a terrible idea. I'm not saying it was bad, I'm not saying the maps were terrible, but the maps weren't really anything to go home and tell mom about. Like they were just kind of average maps. Like the DLC maps were okay after the 2 devs left. I'll get into that later in the video, but you know, halfway through the game's life cycle it really changed and it really got completed, which is a good thing. But for like the first 6 months of this game, it wasn't that good, mostly because it was limited to what you could do. And in all honesty, it wasn't really that finished. Like we didn't have paint jobs, we didn't have custom emblem editors, we didn't have all this stuff. I don't even think we had ranked play either. And it just made the game so broken. And if you guys don't actually remember, back when this game first came out, on like the first week and even like the first month, since it was such a hyped Call of Duty, there was so much players hopping on the servers, and that meant that this game was just absolutely destroyed. The servers were a mess, the launch was just it was just a complete disaster. And the headquarters, you wouldn't even be able to load into the headquarters with other players. You could only go into a alone and solo headquarters, which made it really dumb because everyone was looking forward to headquarters, but you could only go into headquarters by yourself, which was really, really dumb. Apart from all these negatives though, let's get into a couple of positives here with the launch. Obviously, it was a boots on the ground World War II themed Call of Duty, which in my opinion was really, really good. I feel like they completely nailed it with this game's, you know, actual layout of the maps for the boots on the ground. You know, it didn't just feel like a fast put together Call of Duty game. Obviously the maps, there wasn't that much, but in terms of, you know, like the actual gunplay, I feel like the gunplay was really good and they worked really, really well on the maps. The actual guns themselves though, they worked really, really well. The hit detection was pretty nice as it was a sledgehammer game. I don't know why, but everyone says that Treyarch has the worst hit detection. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see for Black Ops 4. But the hit detection in this game was really, really well, and the guns themselves played really good as well as they didn't have their own separate recoils, but they still worked really well in terms of just being, you know, back to the old World War II feel and making you feel like you were actually in World War II. Obviously, it's not that realistic, but in terms of World War II style guns, I really enjoyed them. Another really big thing that Call of Duty World War II actually did was introduce events. Now I know Modern Warfare Remastered introduced events, and I know they were okay, but they weren't anything to the scale that World War II did. Since we had a headquarters in World War II, we had massive events that took place in the headquarters as well as in the game. We had massive events like Winter Siege, which is our first one, if you're not counting Operation Overload, which is literally just the game. We also had stuff like the Resistance, we had Liberty Strike, we had Days of Summer, we had Attack of the Undead, which in my opinion is probably one of the best, and also the one that we're having right now, which is called Halloween Scream, which is a lot of fun. Events were really cool. They came out for a month or so at a time, and they had a week of down period in between each one, so it meant every single month or whatever, you'd have new stuff to do, new contracts to do, and just a bunch of new stuff to unlock and try and play for within World War II, which made it so that if you wanted these new DLC guns, every single month you had a new objective to do, which was to get the guns, and you'd have a ton of new stuff to do every single month, which was really good in my opinion. It kept the life cycle really good, and it was a lot of fun to come back on every single month and try to get these weapons. Obviously, Fortnite was a really big downfall in that because most people didn't play this game due to Fortnite, which makes sense because it was something new. But honestly, the DLC weaponry, how they did it was really, really well. With these events, we also had a bunch of free content, which is really nice. Obviously, we did have stuff like the Gruston House map. We had Infected, which obviously isn't a map, but it's a really good addition to the game. I don't know why it didn't come out with launch. Like I said, broken game at launch, but still Infected coming out was really nice. We've also had stuff like the Sandbox map. We had the headquarters. We had the Winter Carrington, which, okay, I'm just going to say this right now. I bought the Season's Pass because I wanted to get this Carrington map. By the way, it was such a dumb incentive, like, oh, if you get the Season's Pass, you'll get Carrington, and it's like, why would I want Carrington? It's literally just, it's kind of boring if I'm being honest. It's just another map. Like, just ship with Carrington, because 9 maps at launch is really dumb. Make it 10 at least. And then they're just going to give you a free version of Carrington in Winter Siege. Like, why would you pay for a map just to get a snowy one, like, right after? And I don't even think you can still play the old Carrington. Correct me if I'm wrong down there, but, like, it's just dumb in my opinion. I'm not really that big of a fan, but I digress. One of the biggest things in my opinion that made this game actually feel like a shorter life cycle, obviously it was like a month shorter, but it made the life cycle of this game and the replayability of this game massive and made this game a lot better, was back in the April of this game, we actually had the Division Overhaul. And if you guys don't recall, back in the very first 6 months of this game, the divisions were something that were extremely annoying and limited your creative class. Like, for instance, you could only hold a suppressor on your submachine guns if you had the Airborne Division, which obviously was nice if you didn't want to have an attachment for the suppressor, but it was still really annoying because I wanted to use like the Mountain Division or the Resistance Division with a suppressor, but I couldn't, which heavily limited your creative class. And I wasn't a really big fan of this because obviously with, Black Ops 2, which introduced the creative class pick 10 system, and obviously we also had Black Ops 3, which had the pick 10 system, those were just really big, and those are the best created class systems. So obviously, when we don't have the created class system with the pick 10, it's kind of boring, and now we had something that was really limited and really restricted within the created class. So with the Division Overhaul, they basically made it so you could pick whichever you want, and all the attachments, became attachments. So, you could actually put on a suppressor for your submachine guns and pistols. You could actually put on a bayonet for your rifles. You don't have to use that certain division. Honestly, it was amazing what they did with the divisions. It made it so much better in terms of doing what you wanted to do in the game. And it made the customization a lot better. Honestly, I feel like the game should have shipped with this. I don't know why they waited so long. I don't even know why they thought divisions would be a good idea, but it doesn't really matter. It's just, instead of having specialists, they put in divisions. It doesn't matter too much. It's just kind of annoying. But honestly, that was a much needed change, and it made it basically an entirely new game. It felt like we were playing a whole new game in the second half of this game's life cycle, and it made this game a lot better. Also, halfway through the game's life cycle, we had 2 of the big devs, I believe Glenn Schofield as well as Michael Condrey, actually leave the studio. Now, I don't think they left. I don't know what happened to them, but Activision said that they got moved to a different position. I'm not too sure what that means, but honestly, after they left, we did see a ton of changes in the game in terms of leaving the realism, and I think part of the reason why, the Division Overhaul happened was because of their leaving, and honestly, I have a big feeling that they were part of the reason why this game was trying to be realistic, which most of the Call of Duty community didn't really enjoy, if you could tell, because if a game is too realistic, it's kind of boring. And so after they left, the game got way more unrealistic, which kind of made it a little bit more fun, because then we had some crazy camos, we had some crazy, events, which was Attack of the Undead, some crazy game modes, and just a ton more unrealistic stuff, which made the game a lot more fun. Which, no offense, but it was just a better change in my opinion. And honestly, going out to Gun Schofield as well as Michael Condrey, thank you guys so much for all the work that you guys have done in the past with making Advanced Warfare, as well as helping out with Modern Warfare 3. You guys are amazing devs, and I hope you guys are out somewhere making a killer game, because honestly, you guys made some really good games, and I really do thank you guys for the work that you've done in the past. But yeah, guys, that's honestly mostly it in a nutshell. Obviously, I could have made this a massive video, like 30 minutes long going into review. We're at 15 minutes in the recording. I'm going to try and cut it down to 10 or maybe lower. Who really knows? But, that was World War II. Honestly, it was a very fun Call of Duty. I didn't really play it as much as I probably wanted to because of Fortnite. Over the past week, I've been playing it a lot more, as we've been leading up to Black Ops 4. I feel like I'm going to be playing Black Ops 4 all the way through this year as I did with Black Ops 3, because honestly, I feel like the Treyarch games are just the best Call of Duty games out there, because they launch completed. They launch with a killer zombies. They just launched with a ton of awesome features. And now that we have Blackout, I feel like I'm not going to go to Fortnite anymore this year. I'm pretty much done playing Fortnite now. I'm just going to be playing Call of Duty Black Ops 4 all year. And I'm going to try and put in a lot of days into Black Ops 4. I'm going to try and put in the most days I've ever put into Call of Duty. I'm going to try and get to level 1000. And honestly, I'm probably just going to be playing Black Ops 4 all year. So I'm super excited for that. I cannot wait for this Friday, dudes. We're honestly like 5 days away, and it's going to be so much fun. I'm not even going to go to school that day. I'm just going to stay home all day, play home Black Ops 4, stay up 24 hours just to play Black Ops 4. It's going to be so much fun. 24 hours straight, and tons of videos that day too. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Honestly though, World War II, it was one of the funnest Call of Duties I have played within the past 5 years. But one of the biggest downfalls that I had was because obviously over the past 3 years we've had futuristic CODs, which made it so that people were used to the futuristic CODs and that we go to like a really slow paced game, which is World War II. It wasn't really the same, but in all honesty, I really enjoyed World War II. Comment down below what you guys feel about it. I'm sorry this is a longer video. I'll see you guys soon for another video. Black Ops 4 obviously is out within a couple of days, which is going to be awesome. I'm switching my channel over to Call of Duty content, as that's where my home is, that's where my heart is. I'll see you guys soon. Peace out, you guys.